So there's county judges, there's circuit judges, there's appellate courts, and then there's the Florida Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. The county court deals with misdemeanors, which a misdemeanor is a crime punishable by a year or less. They also deal with civil matters, lower dollar amounts, and even that they break it up into small claims and then regular county court outside of small claims. And then you have circuit court that deals with felonies and then deals with the higher dollar civil matters. And then they also do with the domestic violence. They deal with, domestic violence injunctions, domestic violence can also be handled in county court as well if it's dealing with misdemeanors.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, babies in their diapers, welcome to the Tiberius Show with your host, Tiberius Boy.
That's me, Tiberius.
And welcome to the Tiberius Show today. And I'm your host, Tiberius Boy. And as always, we're checking out different jobs and how they affect the world around us. Well, today's guest is a former prosecutor, criminal defense lawyer, courtroom attorney, veteran of the United States Marine Corps and Florida Army National Guard, and now a candidate for circuit judge here in Central Florida. Please help me welcome the one, the only, the amazing Steve Kerestes.
Thank you so much for that generous welcome.
You're welcome, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome.
All right, so for Steve, my listeners, they don't know exactly what is a prosecutor. So what does it do?
So a prosecutor enforces the law, essentially. We all know about police officers and their role in the criminal justice system. They're out there on the streets, protecting people. They're on the front lines, putting their lives, their selves at risk in order to keep us all safe. But what happens to the case after that? Once a police officer arrests someone, once they take them to jail, what happens then? That's the case when lawyers get involved, judges get involved, and prosecutors get involved. Prosecutors take the case from law enforcement. Most of the time, there are some exceptions to that, but 99% of the time, prosecutors take the cases from law enforcement and then take it from there. They file formal charges and present evidence in court and represent the state of Florida, the people of their community.
Mm-hmm. So when you first became a prosecutor, what did you think the job was going to be like?
So I knew that it involved a lot of courtroom work. I knew that it would be exciting, and that's what I wanted. I was still fairly young at that time, even though I was a little bit older than most of my peers because I went in the military after high school. But I was still pretty young, and I wanted a more exciting job, and I knew that being a prosecutor would be more exciting because you're in the courtroom more than anyone else, because you have all the cases. So you're in court almost every day of the week, depending on the judge. Especially as a new prosecutor, you have a lot more cases than everyone else because you have the cases that are more common, the more frequent.
Yeah. So what is the difference between what people see on TV and what prosecutors actually do?
So it really depends. So there's different levels of prosecution. When you start as a prosecutor, I think that's the part that you don't see on TV because you're handling simple batteries, DUIs, trespass, possession of cannabis, etc.
Yeah.
So you're handling things that people wouldn't find that exciting enough to be on a television show. That's the bulk of cases. There are a lot of those cases. There are people getting arrested on those things on a fairly frequent basis. So you're handling the tough stuff from the standpoint of that not everyone thinks your cases are so exciting. So they're harder from that standpoint.
Yeah. So is it just about winning cases, or is it about doing what's right?
So it's 100% about doing what's right. We are considered law enforcement. However, in the courtroom, you have to tell the truth. One thing that people would be surprised to know about lawyers is lawyers are much more honest than they're usually portrayed on television or in jokes or what have you. We have a high standard. Lawyers do. You cannot allow someone to lie in the courtroom. That's a really big thing that they stress in law school and in practice as well. So it absolutely is about the truth coming out, the truth being important, having evidence to support what it is that you're alleging in court. And without the truth, there's the justice system really breaks down.
So how do prosecutors decide what charges are fair?
So the individual prosecutors shouldn't be, making those decisions all by themselves, just in a vacuum, of course. You have an elected state attorney, of course, who sets the tone of the office. And, of course, they're elected, so hopefully they're setting the tone as the people want it to be because the people elected that elected state attorney. So they set the tone, but they don't work in a vacuum either. Any state attorney, they're elected to enforce the law, of course. They don't write the law. Prosecutors, law enforcement, they're part of the executive branch of government. And, of course, the people who write the laws are the legislature. They write the laws. Law enforcement enforces those laws.
Yeah. So what does it mean to seek justice instead of just trying to win?
So seeking justice means that you have to let the evidence tell you what to do. The evidence, the law, it's not about what you think happened. It's not about what you want to happen. It's not what you want to or what you personally think should happen. It's about the law and the evidence driving your decisions. And more than that, taking into account everything you could possibly know. There's a bit of a difference in prosecution when it comes to, what someone actually committed and the facts of the case and how that relates to a certain law and how that's a violation of a certain law.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's sentencing. That's okay, you broke the law, so now what? And especially at sentencing, you want to take everything into account. Everything is relevant. Everything that if there's a victim in the case, of course, everything that the victim impact and what the case has meant to them, but also the accused or the convicted at that point. What their life has been like and what has gone into that led us to this moment.
So what was the hardest part about being a prosecutor?
That's pretty easy to say. You have the burden of proof. So as a prosecutor, you are a plaintiff's attorney, essentially. And what it means to be a plaintiff's attorney is that you have the burden of proof. You have to prove things. You've alleged things. It doesn't make any difference if you're on the civil side or on the criminal side. As a plaintiff, you're making certain allegations, and if you make certain allegations in court, you have to prove that with some burden of proof. And in order to meet that burden of proof, you're going to have to bring in evidence. And we'd like evidence to just be things we can just pick up and just take to court and just give it to the court and say, here's the evidence. But it doesn't work that way. It requires human participation. You can have DNA in a case, but the DNA has to be explained to the jury and brought into evidence through a human being.
Yeah.
Someone with the expertise has to come to court and explain what's going on here, who collected the DNA, where it came from, what this data means and all of this and the testing and that.
So what was the most rewarding part?
The most rewarding part is the service aspect. You're working for the community. You're working for victims. You don't represent victims directly, but you do represent the community. You're the closest thing to an attorney that the victims have that have any power in the case. So what is most rewarding is being able to see justice done, seeing people, especially in cases that are very serious, when someone is truly harmed. I can remember a case where a man, I believe he was in his late 40s, early 50s, robbed an elderly woman, and he got money from her. And it was a decent amount of money, and he could have just left, but he didn't do that. He struck her repeatedly, injured her quite severely. So when he went to prison for, I believe it was 30 years, if I remember correctly, that was pretty rewarding, because it was just, the robbery is one thing. It's one thing to take someone's money, but then to injure the individual as badly as he did. She was okay in the end, and she did recover from her injuries, thank God. But, those types of cases are very rewarding. When people are seriously harmed, when people die, to see justice done in those cases, of course, are the most rewarding.
So after being a prosecutor, you decided to, explore the other side, working as a criminal defense lawyer. What's the biggest difference between the two? Other than, oh, hey, I'm with the police. Oh, hey, I'm with the criminal. Like,
Yeah.
what's the main difference other than that?
So I'll go back to what I talked about before. When you're on the prosecution side, you're the plaintiff, which means you have the burden of proof. You have to bring in evidence. As a defense attorney, it doesn't, doesn't make any difference if you're on criminal defense or civil defense. You don't always have a burden. You could, if you're making allegations yourself, you may have a burden, but you don't have a burden. You don't have to have a burden. So you don't have that same anxiety about bringing in evidence and having to bring everyone in to prove what it is that you have alleged, because you haven't alleged anything. So that's nice that you don't have that. However, on the criminal side, you meet the accused. You go to jail to meet them if they're in jail. If they're out of custody, you meet them wherever they're able to meet you. But when you go to the jail, you meet them. They can be very kind. They can be very nice. They're usually very respectful to you. And you meet them in a very different environment than whatever circumstances brought them to where they are. And so when you have that human element, there's a certain level of anxiety that comes to the job at that point, knowing that this person is, you're responsible for what happens to this person to some extent. If the evidence is there, sometimes there's very little you can do, but, you have to preserve this person's rights. They have certain rights that, this is around the 4th of July, when we talk about the nation's birthday, big thing about America is our rights. We have certain inalienable rights that that we believe that we have. Yeah. So as a defense attorney, you have to make sure that your client's rights are preserved, because that's one of your main roles there.
So how did working as a defense lawyer change the way that you saw the justice system?
I think the easiest way to say it is it humanizes it for sure. When you meet someone that's accused, even if they did do the thing, and even if this person does end up being punished severely, they're still a human being. You're still meeting with that person. You're still getting to know them. And like I said, especially if they're in custody, you're meeting them in a very different environment. It's a sober environment. It's a lot of times people in jail, it can be a positive experience, and that there's some positive influences. It's not uncommon to go walk into a jail and walk in with pastors and people from churches and that kind of thing. There's nurses. I mean, it's a working environment, so there's all kinds of people. So it can be a somewhat positive environment at times. Of course, it's not always, of course, but there are positive influences in jail.
So did working on both sides make you a better attorney?
I think so, for sure. Anytime you get more experience in life, it helps you. All experiences touch us in some way and influence us. So the more experiences we have, then the more well-rounded we have, the more we know.
So what would you tell a teenager who thinks court is just about arguing, like on TV?
So the thing about, I've heard it, of course, a million times. People say, oh, my child likes to argue, so they should be a lawyer. Well, in order to be a lawyer, you have to like going to school. You have to like reading. You have to not only go to undergraduate school for 4 years, and not only do you have to do really well there, but you have to get yourself into law school, and then you have to go to graduate school and perform there for 3 years. That's hard. Graduate school is much harder than undergrad. Graduate school is very demanding. It requires a lot of reading. People's eyes go bad. I needed glasses after I was in law school. I didn't have glasses before then. So there is an incredible amount of reading involved in law school. So you have to be able, you don't have to like it, but if you don't like to read, it's going to be very hard for you. So that's the big part about being a lawyer, is you need to like school, you need to like college, and you need to like reading.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. So what skills should a teenager work on if they want to work in the legal field?
Read. reading comprehension, writing. Writing is going to change.
My teachers can't read mine, so how are they going to read it?
Well, that's okay. There's nobody writes things out. There's typewriters, of course, or not typewriters, but keyboards, of course.
Well, of all of the legal TV shows and movies, which is the most realistic?
The one that lawyers I know you've talked to other lawyers before, and I assume they've told you this before, but my cousin Vinny, everyone points to. Comedies, I think, have a better opportunity to get things right because they can give you something that may be boring, but then tell you a joke afterwards, and it makes it palatable.
Yeah.
So you can have this real thing that might not be that exciting, but then you tell a joke, and then everyone laughs, and then it's okay, and it's entertaining. And my cousin Vinny, of course, does that. There's lots of silly moments in that show. But if you take out the silliness, that show is very, very realistic.
All right. Well, so, I mean, it's not like Better Call Saul or anything, right? So it's like Better Call Saul isn't the most realistic?
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, here's like a good time to take a quick commercial break. Let's hear it from our sponsors.
So you want to make an ad for your company, right?
Yeah, Tiberius, you want to help me?
Okay, so what's the name of the company?
PPWND.
PP what?
Professional Pressure Washing and Detailing.
So you like clean driveways?
Yeah, like that. We pressure wash commercial buildings and semi-truck and trailers.
So how would someone get a hold of you?
They can visit my site at ppwnd.com or call me at 407-900-7793.
So I just tell them to call you at 407-900-7793 or visit ppwnd.com?
Yeah, Tiberius, you got it.
Cut. That's a wrap. Just use that.
Oak Ridge Gun Range is a family-oriented shooting range that has been in business for over 30 years. They specialize in basic firearm training and offer numerous services such as consignments, gun trades, gunsmithing, and concealed weapon classes. I even got my training for gun safety at Oak Ridge Gun Range. Great customer service, and firearm safety is what they do best. So find out more at oakridgegunrange.com.
And we're back here with former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, and circuit judge candidate, Steve Kerestes. All right, Steve. So now you're running for circuit judge. So what exactly does a circuit judge do?
So let me just back up. I should say that I am a prosecutor now. I was a prosecutor, then I left and went into private practice, where I did quite a few different things. I worked in civil, some on the civil side, both plaintiff and defense on the civil side. And then a few years ago, I did go back to the state attorney's office to serve the community in that role again. And now I've forgotten your question.
What exactly does a circuit judge do since you're running for it?
So a circuit judge can do any number of things, and it really depends. So a circuit judge can be, it depends where you're stationed, essentially. You can be stationed in a domestic violence injunction court that also deals with family matters, so you could do that. You could work in criminal, of course. There's also civil court, of course, that handles the bulk of the civil matters, but there are also specialty courts. There is a juvenile court. There's dependency court. So there's quite a few different things you can do, and if you're a judge long enough, then you could do quite a number of these things, but it really depends.
So how is a circuit judge different from a regular judge?
Well, I don't know what you mean by regular judge, but so there's county judges, there's circuit judges, there's appellate courts, and then there's the Florida Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. The county court deals with misdemeanors, which a misdemeanor is a crime punishable by a year or less. Mm-hmm. They also deal with civil matters, lower dollar amounts, and even that they break it up into small claims and then regular county court outside of small claims. And then you have circuit court that deals with felonies and then deals with the higher dollar civil matters. And then they also do with the domestic violence. They deal with, domestic violence injunctions, domestic violence can also be handled in county court as well if it's dealing with misdemeanors.
So what type of preparation would a judge need to do before a case?
Before a case, again, it depends. And that's a really good lawyer answer, by the way. They teach you this in law school, and they tell you, they say it over and over again. Oftentimes, you ask a lawyer something, and the answer should be, it depends. It really should, because it depends. It depends upon the facts of the case and what type of case it is, etc. So for a judge to prepare for court, it depends what kind of court you're talking about. If we're talking about domestic, the injunction side of things, of course, you would want to read the petition the person has filed in order to apply for the injunction. You want to know what's going on there, what's being alleged. If you're talking about a family case, you might want to look at the pleadings to see what people have filed, what's in the court file. Oftentimes, what this kind of boils down to is looking in the court file. Looking in the court file, seeing what's going to be on your docket, reviewing pleadings, reviewing motions, seeing what's going on, so you have some kind of idea of what's going to take place that day. And you can brush up on the law if you need to, perhaps print out some statutes, case law if you need to, so you don't have to rely entirely on the parties, because the parties may come in prepared, they may not come in prepared. It might be pro se, meaning there is no lawyer, and then they're not going to know the law typically. Yeah. So you really need to prepare yourself the best you can, depending on what's going on that particular day. But your day-to-day activities really can vary.
So how does a judge keep emotions from taking over?
That's a great question. So that's a life thing. That has nothing to do with the law. That has nothing to do with anything you learned in law school. That's something that I would say two things. Number one, it helps if you're just born a little more predisposed to keep your cool. But it's also something, of course, that you can learn, you can train yourself for, to keep yourself calm. Also to watch out for what it is that triggers you, so to speak, what gets you excited, and know that when that happens, you need to step back.
Are judges allowed to not want to deal with a case?
Again, it depends.
Like if it's like one of their trigger points where they get like super emotional, are they allowed to say, I don't want to solve this case, like choose a verdict on it?
Yes, there are times when a judge must recuse themselves for a variety of reasons. So yes, you can recuse yourself as a judge, and then the case gets reassigned.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the word was for it. I was just like, are they allowed to do that? Because I think they are.
Yes.
So can a judge make a ruling that's based on the situation, even if the act was against the law?
All right. So we talked a little bit off camera here about this question. And essentially what we're talking about is jury nullification, I believe is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we don't always know why a jury does what they do. A jury just has to answer two questions unless there are special findings. But let's just keep it simple and say that typically a jury says guilty or not guilty in a criminal case, of course. In a civil case, the verdict is going to be different, of course. But in a criminal case, it's going to say guilty or not guilty. Not guilty doesn't mean innocent. It can mean that the state didn't meet their burden. It could mean that a applicable affirmative defense applies to the case, so they were justified, they were legally justified, or the jury's not told this, but there is such a thing as jury nullification, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. Once the jury comes back not guilty, the verdict is concluded. So you're asking whether or not a judge can do that. A jury
as well.
in cases when there's not a jury in the case.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're not always going to know, just like you don't always know why a jury does something, you're not always going to know why a judge does something either. A judge is required to follow the law, of course. But sometimes the judge or whoever the trier of fact is, that's another legal term for the person who has to decide the facts of the case, like a jury. A jury is the trier of fact. So if there's no jury, that means the judge is therefore the trier of fact. So if a judge rules in favor of one party, you might think it's jury nullification, but you won't really know that unless the judge just happens to tell you. So yes, there is discretion in there to determine the facts if they are in fact the trier of fact, so they can determine the facts based upon their perception of the evidence and the witnesses, etc.
So you served in the Marines, and thank you for your service. So how does your military service help prepare you for the job of judge?
Well, like I said before, any experience in our lives impacts us.
Patience.
Yeah. So everything that happens to us along the way to get us to where we are affects you and impacts you, of course.
So what is one skill that you learned in the Marines that you still use today?
Discipline, for sure. In the Marine Corps, you learn discipline, of course.
Does it matter in a courtroom?
Yes, it does. It really does, because you have to keep going. My father told me something once, put one foot in front of the other and get going. My father didn't care that much about what his children did for a living. He just wanted us to get out there and work and do a good job at things. And And that's, in a sense, what I'm talking about. When you're in the courtroom, you have to keep, within reason, of course. If you're ill or something, there's allowances. But, you have to do your part. You have to do your job. You have to perform for your client, especially, it's like being a parent. You can't call in sick one day, as a parent. Of course, if you're a lawyer, you can call in sick, of course. But I'm talking about, you have to show up. You have to do your job well for your clients because they expect that and they deserve that.
So if you became circuit judge, what kind of cases would you want to preside over?
I would like to think that a judge should go into this sort of thing with a willingness to accept whatever it is the chief judge gives you. So the chief judge in our circuit, I believe it works the same in most circuits, the chief judge assigns the judges, and the chief judge will assign whoever is elected to a position. And it's better for the person coming in to have a willingness to accept whatever role they're given, because you're going to come in, when you come into as a new judge, you're going to be the lowest person, or at least one of, if there's more than one election, you're going to be one of the lower people on the totem pole. So you're not going to get what you want. You're not going to be able to go in demanding things because everyone else has been there longer than you.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a willingness to say, I will go where you wish me to serve. I will do my role well, no matter where I am placed.
Well, on that note, let's do another quick break to pay some bills.
The Tiberius Show would like to thank one of their dedicated sponsors, Custom Designs Orlando. These guys are on Mills Avenue and do all sorts of stuff, ranging from photo ID badges, engraved signs, custom braille ADA signs, vinyl lettering to trophies and awards. The cool part about Custom Designs is they can ship products all over the United States. You can reach them at 407-898-0373 and tell them that
Tiberius
sent you.
Over 40 years, Lighthouse Central Florida has provided education, independent life skills, and job training to thousands of Central Floridians who live with blindness or any degree of vision loss. Whether it's picking out clothes in the morning or just moving around your community and serving Orange, Seminole, and Osceola counties, contact Lighthouse Central Florida at 407-898-2483 or visit them online at lighthousecfl.org.
And we're back here with Steve Kerestes. So, Steve, what is your big why for deciding to run for circuit judge?
So experience, dedication to service, having something meaningful, having experience that is meaningful to offer to the community, to offer myself up to the community as someone willing to serve in this role, and it's a very demanding role. I have 20 years of legal experience, and in that experience, as we've talked about here on this show, experience on both sides of criminal cases, both sides of civil cases, and not only that 20 years of legal experience, but also my military experience as well. We didn't even talk about other things, just other life experiences that led me to this place of wanting to serve, wanting to offer myself up to the people of this community. To say, hey, if you want me, I'm here. I'm here to serve. I want to serve for you. I want to work hard for the citizens of Orange and Osceola County.
All right. So what is something that you did not expect while running this campaign?
Well, so my wife ran a few years ago, so I had some clue about what to expect. The things that there's things you can prepare for and things you can't prepare for, I suppose. The interactions with people, they're usually great and they're very enjoyable. Meeting strangers and talking with strangers can be fun when they know who you are and know what's going on, and that helps when you're wearing a t-shirt that says you're running for election, so that helps. But there are people out there who just do not want to be bothered and who want nothing to do with you whatsoever and can get quite angry about it. So that's not, super fun.
So what do you believe makes someone ready to be a judge?
Experience, a willingness to serve, a proper demeanor. That's something that is incredibly important. You don't want someone on the bench who's going to be angry. You don't want someone who hates being there. You have to wonder sometimes when you see an angry judge, on the bench. Well, why are you there? You don't have to do this. Why did you choose this profession if you hate being here, if you hate being in the courtroom? So me, I've spent years of my work life in the courtroom. I have lived in courtrooms, work life, of course. And I know what it's like because I've been there. I've spent so much time there. It's a place where I'm very comfortable, a place I like to be, a place where I'm comfortable speaking with people and being friendly, engaging and being, with everyone that you have to engage with. So it's not just the parties. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. You have to work with deputies. You're working with clerks. And these people don't work for you. You work with them, and you may be a leader in the courtroom, but they don't work for you. So, a good demeanor and experience in the courtroom is vital to know how to operate in the courtroom in this very diverse place with all these moving parts from different agencies, because the deputies, they work for the sheriff's office. The clerks, they work for the elected clerk. So there's a lot of different things going on there. And so, having the experience that I have is incredibly helpful.
So why should young people care about judges even before that they are old enough to vote?
Well, judges are a part of democracy, so that's one thing. I was part of a generation that was taught that, democracy is great. I'm sure they still teach that at school, but, when I grew up, democracy was, we were sold that democracy is this great thing. Even when I was young, you had MTV, music television. I don't think it's around anymore, but MTV had this thing called Rock the Vote, and judges are a part of the democracy. They're a part of our government. And it's fun to be a part of that. It's fun to know more about the democratic process, to know more about government and civics and what goes on in our community that makes, that helps to move everything and make everything go.
So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
What I do for fun, I love to spend time with my family, of course, my wife, my son. I love spending time with my son. We like to find movies we like to watch. We like to go for walks. We like to walk places. We've really, my wife, she really got me into walking, and we really do like to walk quite a few places, and we don't mind walking long distances to go to eat and that kind of thing. So, and walking with your family, it's a really enjoyable experience because there's not as many distractions. There's no, it's harder. Well, you can play on your phone, of course, while you're walking, but but it gives you more of an opportunity to be a family and to talk to one another, and it really can be quite nice.
So do you play video games? And if so, what's your favorite one?
I don't play a ton of video games, especially right now. I'm essentially working 2 jobs. I'm a prosecutor,
not even on
and
your phone?
Of course, I do play on my phone like everybody else. I think I play this. Let me get on my phone and see what it is for sure, because I'm not even sure the name. But I am like everybody else, and I have something on my phone that I play with from time to time. Block Blast, that's what it is.
I love Block Blast. Nice. What's your high score?
I think I got close to 200,000. I'm not sure if I got all the way there, but I think I got close.
Yeah, my mom's at like 2.3 million or something.
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's
she's
a
good.
lot.
Yeah, I'm not at 200K. I think I'm at like 130K. Yeah, but my mom's really good at it for some reason. So what's your favorite book to read?
Oh, my goodness. I love to read. I love to read for fun. Even when I was in law school, I still enjoyed a book that wasn't legal related. So when I read, I really want to go somewhere. I want to travel in a book. I want it to take me somewhere. I like to go to other countries, to other places, other times, other cultures. And you're kind of learning, but it's not so obvious learning. You're learning things, but it's a fun read because there's usually a good story. Hopefully there's a good story, and it makes learning about other cultures, other places enjoyable.
All right, well, now the questions only get harder from here. Ready? What is one life lesson that you learned the hard way?
Oh, goodness. One thing I like to tell young people, I like to think I learned the hard way is, well, I definitely did learn it the hard way, is how enjoyable it is to be a parent. My wife and I weren't sure if we were going to have kids or not. We weren't told as young people, about the value of having children. We were that generation who were told, go out there, get good jobs, work hard, get married later, have kids later, all these things. So we were a little bit older when our son was born, and that's been the greatest experience of my life. It's, you could take all these other things away, And as long as I still have a family, as long as I'm still a part of this wonderful family that I have, yeah, forget it. I mean, no amount of money can give you the joy of being a parent, of being a father, of being a husband. You know, the joy that it gives you in your life, you know, not just happiness. Happiness is something that, you know, can come and go, but real joy in life. And I didn't know that. That's something I definitely learned. I would have wished I would have learned in an earlier part of my life of how joyful it is being a parent.
All right. So what was the biggest mistake that you've ever made in life, and how did it make you a better person?
The biggest mistake I ever made. I'm gonna go back to the kids thing because I, you know, if I could go back and do it all over, I had a lot more children. I don't know how many children I would have had because you're not always in control of these things, of course. But my wife agrees with me on this. We would love to go back in time, get married younger, had more kids, for sure.
All right. Well, can you tell me that one story? You know, remember, this is a kid's show. That one story, well, that you're not supposed to tell me about. Come on.
All right,
you
I'm
can
not
tell
supposed to tell you about. Let's see. Not supposed to tell you about. All right. So I was pretty young when this happened. I went fishing with my grandfather. I had one grandfather who was a real outdoorsman who liked to do that sort of thing. We went fishing, caught some fish, brought them home, and I'm sure we must have done some kind of preparation. But at any point, we went to we put them in the freezer. And I go to sleep that night, and I'm thinking to myself, all I can do is think about these fish. I must have been pretty young. And so I'm thinking about these fish who were sitting in the freezer, and I felt pretty bad about it. So in the middle of the night, I get out of bed, I walk to the kitchen, I retrieve the frozen fish from the freezer, I take them and I put them in a bucket with some water because I'm thinking to myself, that's how fish come back to life. You just put them in some water and everything will be fine. They can still go back to being fish. So I do that. I get a bucket, I put some water, and I put the frozen fish in the water, and I put it in the closet. And I close the door. And you can imagine what happens next. At some point in time, I don't know how long it took, but at some point in time, everyone knew what was going on because you could smell it throughout the house. So someone goes into the closet and finds the fish, who of course are not brought back to life, and discover what has happened. And of course, you know, ask me what in the world's going on here.
What the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Dead fish in your closet.
Yeah.
What the hell, dude? That's hilarious. All right. Well, is there anything else you think the listeners should know about you and what you do?
So, I have, in my role as a prosecutor, I haven't just tried cases. I haven't only handled cases at the state attorney's office. I've also been a leader there and supervisor and teacher of young attorneys. And something I often tell young attorneys is when you have the burden of proof, when you're trying to convince a jury of something or anyone of something, then you should repeat yourself and you should make sure you highlight and repeat the things that are important, because if you tell someone once, they're often probably not going to remember it. But you tell it to them multiple times and they'll remember. So again, I've been an attorney for 20 years. I have lived most of my work career in the courtroom. I am comfortable in the courtroom because of the amount of time I've spent there, the amount of time I've spent on the plaintiff side, defense side, prosecutor, defense, all of these things that goes into the experience that I've gained over the past 20 years, working at large law firms, small law firms, working in public practice, working in private practice. Even before I was a lawyer, my time in the military, my 4 years of active duty in the Marine Corps, being able to travel around the world. I was stationed in Okinawa. I was stationed on a ship for a while and went around South America. I even got to go to Africa aboard a ship. And then after I got out the active duty in the Marine Corps, I joined the Florida Army National Guard and served there for 3 years while I was an undergrad. And all of that experience I would like to bring to the people of Orange and Osceola County. So I'm asking for their vote for Steve Kerestes for Circuit Judge on August the 18th of this year, 2026. Thanks.
All right. Well, what is that one question that you think I forgot to ask you?
You know, when I thought about this question beforehand, I was going to talk more about family, but I've already talked quite a bit about that. what's most important to me, and like I said before, it really is my family. Being a dad has just been the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I would say more than being a lawyer, more than any amount of money that I've earned. Being a dad is just an incredibly rewarding experience. So any chance to ask about my family and being a husband, I love my wife dearly. She really is my best friend. She really does really is just perfect for me. We still like each other. We've been married for quite a few years now. We still like each other. We still want to be around each other and spend time together. So yeah, the family, I could go on about it all day.
Well, thank you, Steve, for being our special guest. Can you stick around for Math Corners?
Yes, of course.
Aw, Dad, my computer's slow again and I can't play my games.
Call Your Computer Solutions today, and we will scan for viruses and clean that computer up remotely and make it fast again. Our phone number is 407-826-0810.
Thanks, Dad. My computer's fast again. Now I can do my homework. Thanks for calling Your Computer Solutions at 407-826-0810.
Tiberius' favorite subject, it's Math Corners!
And now it's time for Math Corners. Thank you so much, Steve, for helping me with Math Corners. And this week, we're going to talk about canvassing an area for a campaign. Now, a lot of people think running for office is just putting up signs and shaking hands. But campaigns also have to plan their time, count how many doors they can reach, and make sure volunteers are using their hours wisely. Now, since you're running for circuit judge, I thought that this would be the perfect math problem for today.
All right.
All right. A campaign team is canvassing a neighborhood. Each volunteer can knock on 18 doors in 1 hour. The campaign has 5 volunteers, and they canvass for 3 hours on Saturday. How many doors can the team knock on altogether?
I love that you've asked me this question because it gives me the opportunity to take that question and then give it back to you and say, do you know the answer to this question?
Yeah, it's just 3 times 18 times 5. Like,
Oh, yeah, it's so easy.
It's not that bad. I mean, you could also just take, can you do that? I don't know. I'll figure it out. But well, first, this is a great world problem because, campaigns have to use math, plan out how many people they can reach in a certain amount of time. So let's break it down step by step. So first, we know that 1 volunteer can knock on 18 doors in 1 hour. There are 5 volunteers, so 18 times 5 is 90 doors. That means the whole team can knock on 90 doors in 1 hour. So far, nice and easy. So the team then canvasses for 3 hours. So we multiply 90 times 3 for 270 doors. That means the campaign team can knock on 270 doors altogether. Now, that's a lot of door knocking. If I knocked on 270 doors in one day, my hand would probably need its own campaign manager. Because it would just be tired.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do anything anymore.
Yeah, might need a brace.
So, Steve, when someone's running for judge, what is the most effective way to talking to a lot of people in one day to get the message out?
So you can communicate in various ways, of course. You can communicate with materials such as, call them walking cards, palm cards, something to that effect. So you can communicate with more than just words, of course. You can hand people materials. You can let them read for themselves. You can tell them where they can go to read more, because some people, they don't really want to be bothered at that instance because they have something going on. You can just let them know that, hey, you can go someplace like electkerestes.com. Again, electkerestes.com to learn more about myself, and you can learn more about whoever it is that, if it's someone else. So you can give them the tools to learn more at a time that's more convenient for them. And of course, you have to be able to read a room if they do want to talk to you and ask you questions. And of course, you have to be willing to do that as well.
Well, my teacher said that I would use math every single day. How do you use math in your work?
How do I use math in my work? So a lot of times you have to count the amount of the evidence, the items, if you're a plaintiff's attorney and you have the burden of proof as a prosecutor, or on the civil side, you need to know how much evidence you have. You need to know the items that you have. And oftentimes it's helped when you're preparing to number these things out. A lot of times a judge may ask you, how many witnesses do you have? How many evidentiary items do you have? How long is this going to take? And, you need to have some kind of idea, be able to add these things together, not just the exhibits or the number of testifying individuals, but knowing how much time that these people are going to take on the stand. Some witnesses can be very brief, some can be very long. So there is some math there that you need to know how much time you have and how much time you're going to need.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steve, for your help with Math Corners.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Now it's time for the Heart of a Lion. As you know, we talk about the qualities of living by the Heart of a Lion, which stands for leadership, integrity, obedience, and ability. So this week, we're going to talk about leadership. For me, I think leadership is the act of loving what is good, having self-control, and being disciplined. Qualities of leadership are providing guidance and direction, organization, and being a positive influence on others. So recently, I got my learner's permit, so I can actually learn how to drive. My dad's been teaching me a little bit at a time, but instead of giving me the keys and telling me to just drive around, he took the time to make little sections of time with each covering a certain area of driving. We started in a parking lot, practicing acceleration and turning as well, as in going in reverse into a parking space. Then we did a cobblestone road and going in and out of driveways as well as stopping at stop signs. Then we did a 2-lane road, Edgewater Drive, just to go to the dollar store. So after a week, he said I was finally ready to try on the on-ramp to I-4, but I had to get off on the next exit so I could gain confidence for the speeds of a highway. For the most part, all was good. He only screamed and jumped out of his chair one or two times. But, what really matters is that my dad is, leading me by being patient. He gives me direction, lets me practice, corrects me when I need help, then gives me another chance to do better. That made me realize that leadership is not always about telling someone everything that they did wrong. Sometimes leadership is about breaking a big thing into smaller steps so that someone can grow without feeling overwhelmed. My dad showed leadership by helping me build confidence on one small goal at a time. And I'm learning that becoming responsible does not happen all at once. It happens by practicing, listening, and improving little by little. So Steve, do you have an example of leadership that you saw this week?
An example of leadership I saw this week? I would certainly hope so, because I've been a dad all week long. So I hope I've been leading in a positive way for my son, for sure. But you can lead. When I was in the Marine Corps, they're all about leadership. They talk about leadership from the very beginning, which might sound funny because when you're in boot camp, you're the lowest person literally on the totem pole of anyone in the military. But they still talk to you about leadership and how important it is that if you find yourself in that role, that you have to be able to take up the mantle and lead. So you can lead in many different ways, and one of the ways you're always leading as a parent is by your actions, by the way you behave, by the way you treat other people, and that's a constant effort. Every day, everything that comes out of your mouth, you have to watch what you're saying, you have to be intentional about what you say, about your actions, because your children are watching you, and you are leading them, even if you don't think that you really are, but you are, of course.
Mm-hmm. We should always try to be lion strong in everything we do, shouldn't we?
Yes, we should.
And that's our show, folks. I want to thank the one, the only, the amazing Steve Kerestes for being on my show. It has been so much fun talking with you today. I think we learned a lot about your work in the legal field, and you're running for circuit judge.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
No problem. And do you mind giving your social media website again, so where we can vote for you, maybe?
Yes, vote for Steve Kerestes on August the 18th and go to Elect Kerestes to learn more. ElectKerestes.com.
All right. Well, also you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at The Tiberius Show. And I would like to thank WWPR 409 AM, KNC98, Soul Radio 24/7, Easy Way TV, and all the other stations that air on my show. And please be sure to visit The Tiberius Show on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And Steve, are you subscribed yet?
Yes, I am. I subscribed earlier today.
Ooh, okay. Well, this week, Murray Lode says, when are you airing Liberty Troll? And OBM615 says, God is good. Well, thanks, OBM, for watching the show. And yes, God is great. And for Murray Lode, I don't know when it's coming out because we pre-record shows. So I don't know when it's coming out during the show. But it should be there earlier. Or it should be there by now, at least. But be sure to leave a comment on my videos, and I might even mention yours at the end of the show. And also, be sure to listen to us next on our video show with your host, Tiberius Boy. And that's a wrap.